Hey everyone, and welcome to Automotive Logistics with me, Christopher Ludwig. In early October, we met in Detroit for the Automotive Logistics and Supply Chain Global Live Conference. And among the key topics that we discussed there was indeed the pivot to vehicle electrification and the role the supply chain will play in wrapping that up, as well as the emphasis on making supply chain and logistics more sustainable, including reducing emissions, waste, and transport and packaging, ethical sourcing, and partner decisions. And I think it's fair to say we can only expect to hear a lot more about both of these topics as we go ahead. But looking back at the event, one of the workshops that we held, which I think very interestingly brought these themes together in an Ideas Lab, focused on how can supply chain innovation build a sustainable electric vehicle industry. And I'm pleased to welcome with me today the leader of that Ideas Labs, who's going to share some insights and action points that came out of that, Sean Maguire, Electric Vehicle Strategy and Program Lead for Chep Automotive Industrial Solutions. Welcome, Sean.
Welcome, Chris. Good to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you too. I mentioned the title there, but can you give us a little bit more around the central theme of the Ideas Labs a few weeks ago back in Detroit?
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. You know, it was a great lab. It was a great session that we had with members of the industry. And essentially what we did was we took a look at what overall sustainability means to the industry, maybe what some of the challenges are specifically with some of the key areas of supply chain, and then looking ahead at the future as far as what can we do as far as an overall industry, as well as bringing some potential new insights as far as innovation in order to help drive sustainability as far as creating a more sustainable future for the automotive industry, specifically for the electric vehicle industry.
Great. And give us a little flavor of the demographics there. Who was what sort of companies were there in the room?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did have some key tier one suppliers to the existing automotive internal combustion industry, as well as the EV industry. We also had leaders from packaging providers, as well as other supply chain support functions.
Great. So why don't we get into the detail just a little bit? Tell us maybe some of the key discussion points, whether there were some of the particular areas or challenges that were discussed that the industry needs to address.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Chris. So we started out with a little bit of a pain point assessment. So going around the room, understanding some of what existing challenges are in the industry, as well as looking forward at the electric vehicle industry and some of what those challenges may be. And some of the key challenges are around infrastructure, around essentially education, and a lot to learn, right? There's consistently things changing as far as legislation when it comes to electric vehicles. A lot of things are different regarding electric vehicles versus the standard internal combustion engine. We also talked about stakeholder alignment. This is one of the key areas that is definitely a challenge when you're taking a look at everyone involved in the supply chain, from the supplier base all the way through the OEMs to the time of consumption, ensuring that all parties are aligned and understand really what the full expectation is associated with the supply chain. We also talked about some of the challenges regarding inventory and volumes. Obviously, as electric vehicles ramp up and ICE engine production starts to ramp down, obviously there's some challenges regarding production, volume forecast, etc. In addition, and associated with that is obviously lead times and cycle times, right? So if there's low production batches, obviously that can lead to higher cycle times as far as batch producing is concerned. And we also talked a little bit about quality expectations. I think there's some opportunity to get some alignment as far as what quality is expected with electric vehicles versus where we're at today with internal combustion engines.
Really good, interesting spread mix there. I mean, one of the things that I just, was the room aligned that an electric vehicle supply chain actually has to be sustainable? I mean, I think we're talking about sustainable supply chains anyway, but does the electrification of it actually kind of put even more impetus on that?
100% yes, but obviously there's some specific challenges associated with sustainability. And when there are low production volumes, specifically initially, and there are some of these key supply chain challenges. Being sustainable is difficult. Sustainability from an environmental perspective, but also sustainability from an overall business perspective around profitability can be challenging, at least during the initial stages of ramp up.
It's a good point, and if we were to get into things like I'm sure packaging and utilization, pack density, all the kinds of things you try to do to take out waste and remove emissions, when you're suddenly dealing with low scales, that's a challenge. But let's talk a little bit about some of the action points or potential solutions, at least directions that may have come out of it. Can you give us some insight there?
Yes, I think one of the key areas is around visibility. There's really two key areas. One is around visibility, the other is around education. So if I take visibility in general, I think there's an opportunity for innovation as far as technology is concerned, right? Obviously, everyone understands what's happening today as far as the semiconductor challenges, right? And this is only going to become a bigger challenge as vehicles become more electrified and more semiconductors are needed, right? So giving visibility to the actual supply chain, giving visibility to the actual components, allowing people to understand where they're at when it's needed is key. The other is around education. So how can we as an industry work together in order to really drive some of these initiatives forward? And I think one is around communication, right? So how can we use events such as Automotive Logistics in order to support really the industry, bringing in subject matter experts, bringing in the decision makers, whether that be at the OEM, whether it be at the tier level or the supply chain level. And let's have these difficult conversations around what works good and what doesn't work good. And let's take really best business practices as they are today. And there's no reason why we shouldn't adapt them as we move forward to the production of electric vehicles. And the other is around basically creating forums, right? So how can we create forums as supply chain partners in order to bring in really key individuals in order to speak to some of the pain points, right? And start to act upon those pain points, create discussion groups, and really create a good forum for us to start to resolve those issues and start to have the difficult conversations so we can really mitigate some of the risks as we move forward with electric vehicles.
Sounds like a great approach and something we at Automotive Logistics certainly look forward to playing a role in as well and bringing the experts together. Maybe a last question from my side, Sean. I mean, Chep is obviously very strong in container management, packaging, and optimizing supply chains from that point of view. What role do you see, solutions and technology in packaging, container management playing in sustainable supply chains for electric vehicles?
I think for one, it's allowing us to, again, bring partners together, right? We have discussions on a daily basis with suppliers. We have discussions on a daily basis with OEMs, existing OEMs, as well as new OEMs, and really bringing everyone together to understand what the challenges are so we can try and develop standards across the industry in order to make packaging more efficient and beneficial for everyone, both from a sustainability, from an environmental perspective, as well as from a cost management perspective.
It's a great point. And I think also when we talk about new players, whether those are new OEMs, but also battery cell manufacturers, ramping up of the battery supply chain, a whole bunch of new stakeholders involved there with lots of different requirements. So I think, as you point out now, bringing people together to sort of make some of these decisions align now as this ramps up is certainly going to be a key objective. Sean, thank you so much for sharing the output from the Ideas Lab with us and indeed for helping to lead it at the event. We're looking forward to a lot more where that came from in 2022. So hope you'll keep with us on that. We have a lot more to talk about this. And for our audience, be sure to check out Automotive Logistics, where you can see a lot more of the content from the event and more things upcoming. So thanks again to you and that, Sean.
Yeah, thank you again, Chris, and really appreciate the opportunity to speak at the event and look forward to future events.